Part 3. Custodes forces. In the battle for survival there are no bystanders, and no place untouched by such a war. Therefore fight without pity and doubt, for death knows them not. The one who holds the post of Captain General commands one of the most powerful armed forces of the Imperium, and is responsible for the defense of the entire Sol system, Terra, the Imperial Palace, and ultimately the Golden Throne and the Master of Mankind himself. He commands the Adeptus Custodes, and as has happened many times in past centuries, holds a seat in the Council of the High Lords of Terra. Moreover, he must lead the largest military campaigns of the Praetorians and possess martial prowess that is only slightly inferior to the abilities of the Primarchs. Over the millennia since the time of the Great Crusade, only 17 Custodes have drawn the lot to bear such a heavy responsibility. Typically, Captain Generals fall in battle either on the sacred ground of Terra or far from it, when leading key military operations among the stars. Several leaders have relinquished their duties to become the eyes of the Emperor, and 3 others, including Constantine Valdor himself, disappeared under circumstances shrouded in mystery even to their brethren. Throughout the history of the Imperium, very few could even come close to the highest standard of martial might, selflessness and generalship established by Constantine Valdor, the first Captain General of the 10,000. He was such an exceptional warrior that, as it was claimed, he could stand his ground against the Primarchs in a duel of blades. Yet Valdor's chief value to the Emperor lay not merely in his prowess as a combatant. From the earliest days of the Unification Wars, and perhaps even earlier, Constantine remained the most faithful companion of the Master of Mankind. The Captain General would sooner give his life than allow any threat to the life of the God Emperor. Utterly devoted to his lord, Valdor would go to any lengths for his salvation and pay any price, however steep. It is said that Constantine embodied all the ideals of the Adeptus Custodes: courageous, steadfast, vigilant, wise, and when necessary, a true leader, capable of inspiring others to follow. Valdor, a true hero of the Imperium, never suffered a failure in his position. The archives hold no information about what became of the Captain General after the Emperor ascended to the Golden Throne, but some believe he continues to serve the Master of Mankind to this day. Currently, the position of Captain General of the Adeptus Custodes is filled by Trajan Valoris. Many consider him the greatest warrior to hold the title since the Emperor himself embarked on the Great Crusade. During his first 10 years of service among the Custodians, he conducted not 1 but 2 successful blood games in succession, a record yet unmatched. Thanks to remarkable tactical skills and an inherent inclination toward aggression, Trajan earned a place among the Alaris Terminators. In subsequent battles, Valoris earned numerous titles for his feats, such as the destruction of the Space Hulk Mournful Siren, the eradication of the Jinn Stealer cult of the Emperor's Writhing Shadow, and leading the vanguard in a preemptive strike against Crushfist. If Valoris has a weakness, it is his reluctance to wait for enemies to come to him. He lasted only 22 years among his comrades before. Driven by a thirst for proactive engagement, he gained a new assignment. Soon thereafter, he was promoted to Shield Captain. And in this rank, the Custodian led numerous expeditions both within the Sol system and beyond for several decades. Valoris became renowned for meticulously studying his adversaries and predicting their moves before executing a sudden, lethal attack. Trajan spread a network of agents and informants throughout the Segmentum Solar and even in other regions of the Imperium. Recognizing his tendency for impulsive actions, Valoris consistently sought to temper it by gathering as much intelligence as possible before launching an assault. Thanks to this, the strikes of the Shield Captain always hit their mark, and none of his subordinates perished due to hasty command decisions. When Captain General Andros Launchedre fell in the battle for the Black Pyre, Trajan was chosen as his successor. In accordance with tradition, Valoris was entrusted with the armor and weapons of his former lord, masterfully crafted equipment made after the disappearance of Constantine Valdor, which has since been passed down from one master of the Adeptus Custodes to another. The first of these artifacts is the Watcher's Axe. a massive weapon with a blade enshrouded in golden lightning, capable of cleaving through a Hellbrute's sarcophagus with a single strike. Embedded within the shaft of the weapon is a masterfully crafted bolter known as the Eagle's Scream, possessing an astonishingly high rate of fire, discharging armor-piercing rounds tipped with adamantium. The second of these glorious relics is the Castellan's Plate, a flawlessly executed set of power armor with a heraldic shield and an auramite halo. The magnificent cloak of the Captain General is woven from adamantium threads, flowing like fabric yet capable of withstanding shots and sword blows. Attached to Trajan's belt is a mysterious device called the Moment Shackles, an artifact from the dark age of technology, retrieved from the vaults beneath the palace. Using it, Valoris harnesses temporal energy charges and utilizes them to his advantage. For instance, he can theoretically extract an event that lasted mere seconds from history or slow time around him to alter the course of a desperate battle. Trajan has proven himself to be a proactive and skilled Captain General. Under his command, the quantity of blood games has increased tenfold, the defense of regular warp routes into the Sol system has strengthened, and the Terran Hive cities have been cleansed of cults long hidden there. Little escapes the attention of Valoris's ever-growing spy network, and during his secret operations, the Praetorians, armed with full confidence in their righteousness, have eradicated dozens of threats to the Golden Throne. Furthermore, Trajan foresaw the return of Guilliman and the emergence of the Great Rift, thus preparing the Adeptus Custodes for the upcoming changes. Rumors suggest that the Moment Shackles, with their not fully understood capabilities, aided Valoris. Be that as it may, the Captain General's numerous talents make him the ideal commander of the 10,000 in this age of unparalleled cruelty. The Custodes reject even the idea of blind obedience and regard with contempt those who unquestioningly follow orders from above. It is known that the very heresy of Horus was made possible by such practices among the Legiones Astartes. Every Praetorian is expected to ask questions, and it is unsurprising that the Golden Guardians respect only leaders who have proven themselves worthy of their rank, commanders who have repeatedly demonstrated insight, military prowess and strength of spirit and intellect. Such heroes are called shield captains, and their comrades follow them with loyalty and dedication. Few weapons in the Imperium's arsenal can match the strength of the senior officers of the 10,000. These exemplary warriors are capable of defeating an entire unit of heretical Astartes in close combat, decapitating a monstrous Xenos the size of a tank, or cutting down chain ranks of ordinary soldiers with precise gunfire. Whether they strike down foes with the swings of the Castellan axe, thrust and slash with the sentinel blade, or impale victims on the crackling tip of the Guardian's spear, shield captains display perfect mastery of their chosen weapons. Some of them, swift in thought and deed, soar above the battle in the saddle of a gravitic jet bike known as the Dawn Eagle. Others, distinguished by their belligerence and aggression, teleport into the battlefield in the Alarus Terminator armor to overthrow enemy leaders and send their minions fleeing in panic. Regardless of personal weapon preferences, shield captains, as befitting legendary heroes, are impeccable in the art of war. However, these custodians are not only unparalleled fighters, but also insightful commanders with excellent tactical skills, capable of determining the flow of battle at a glance and applying their forces accordingly. On the shoulders of the Praetorian officers lies the heavy burden of responsibility. For squandering the lives of the Emperor's personal bodyguards is an unforgivable sin. Shield captains know neither fear nor doubt, hence to other warriors of the Imperium they may appear haughty and overconfident. But such an opinion is erroneous. Senior officers of the Golden Legion are devoid of such selfish traits as vanity. They possess a sober understanding of how high the stakes are in any of their campaigns. Evidently, the shield captains act accordingly. Every word they utter sounds incontrovertible. Every action they take is full of resolve. Officers tolerate no obstacles in their path, whether they be enemy machinations or the pomposity, ignorance and prejudices of allies. But this does not mean that shield captains cannot inspire ordinary mortals to follow them. On the contrary, they exude an attractive force. and to ordinary imperial soldiers, it seems that these golden giants have stepped off the pages of ecclesiastical writings. Their mere presence is enough to incite religious ecstasy among the faithful, dispelling fears and doubts, replacing them with absolute conviction that the Emperor watches over his servants and will protect their souls should they fall in battle today. Moreover, officers of the Adeptus Custodes are excellent diplomats, knowledgeable in all the nuances of high society. They are privy to the secrets and customs of the world's powerful, allowing Praetorians to persuade, inspire, intimidate or otherwise manipulate those necessary to enact their will. Shield Captain is an exclusively military rank, and the custodian who holds this title is obliged to direct the actions of his brethren on the battlefield. This honourable designation has a general character, further specified by hundreds of other titles, some of which are symbolic, while others are dictated by tradition, some retained only for the duration of a specific task or service in a particular position, while others are conferred permanently. The former category includes ranks like Aquila Commander, Justus Supreme, or Emperor's Headsman, indicating that the custodian either guards a specific section of the palace or plays a specific role in battles. Conversely, a custodian who has stood amongst the companions will forever be known as honoured watchman, while one who has triumphed in a blood game will forever after bear the title of shieldsmith. When the custodians go to war, it is not uncommon for them to be led by multiple shield captains. At times these heroes fight shoulder to shoulder. Formidable alliances like the Golden Brothers or the Heralds Three have become legendary for their loud achievements. In other instances, one of the officers takes overall command of an exceptionally important mission, with his comrades supporting his martial prowess with wise counsel. The question of who assumes leadership is typically resolved without unnecessary disputes, as the shield captains openly discuss each other's strengths and quickly determine who among them is best suited for the task at hand. In essence, these custodians embody the pragmatic approach of the 10,000 to securing victories in the name of the Emperor. When the shield companies of the Golden Legion march to battle against the enemies of mankind, the backbone of the formation is made up of the Custodian Guard. These infantrymen can only be considered rank and file in the sense that they are more numerous than the Praetorians who specialize in specific aspects of warfare. Even a single Golden Guardian is a truly formidable destructive force. Every shot they fire hits its mark precisely, and their slashing, cutting and piercing strikes display unparalleled fencing mastery, flawless mobility and combat intuition. It is no surprise that foes fall dead at the feet of such a hero like leaves in autumn. Custodians are generally incredibly strong, phenomenally resilient, utterly devoid of fear and doubt, and matchless against the most renowned warriors among the many enemies of the Imperium. Such Praetorians are unbreakable in defense and unstoppable in attack. Custodian guards are not assigned to specific detachments. They have the right to change units before each new campaign or even battle. Since every Guardian of the Emperor possesses a unique combat style, their groups operate differently from regular military detachments. The warriors need only know that alongside them fight worthy comrades ready to cover their backs in the melee. Like all warriors of the 10,000, the power of the Emperor courses through the veins of the Custodian Guard, and his hand shields them like an aegis. The traditional armament of these Praetorians is the Guardian Spear, a gilded halberd so heavy that even several mortals could not lift it. It combines a power blade capable of cleaving a Chaos Space Marine in half with a bolter for ranged target engagement. Some custodians, however, prefer the combination of the Storm Shield and Sentinel Blade in battle, a broadsword of terrifying size, so massive that the barrels of bolt throwers fitted to both sides of its hilt release volleys of explosive rounds at close range. The fact that Praetorians wield such weapons one-handed speaks volumes about their physical strength. Adding the reliable cover of a storm shield with an integrated energy field generator to the might of their blade, the Golden Custodians can effortlessly cleave their foes apart, withstanding the most devastating counterattacks. As befits such highly esteemed warriors, Custodian squads often venture into battles aboard ancient Land Raider battle tanks. The warrior demigods, with the support of such a colossal armoured vehicle, possess truly terrifying power. Not even titanic demon spawn and heavy enemy machinery can withstand the simultaneous fierce onslaught of several Praetorian units in their land raiders. The armor and weapons of each custodian are crafted by hand, specifically tailored for the individual, making each suit of armor, adorned with unique patterns and elaborate embellishments, a singular masterpiece of smithing. Nonetheless, the Praetorians' equipment includes some standardized elements, allowing them to quickly ascertain the role of their comrades both on and off the battlefield. The right pauldron of a custodian's armor bears the imperial aquila, a symbol of eternal vigilance and an indication that the golden custodian is entitled to enact the emperor's will with force, if necessary. The gems for armor decoration are sourced from the deep mines of Terra, after which the extracted minerals are handcrafted by jewelers. Each of the stones on the armor of all warriors within a shield company has an identical color, a testament to the skill of the artisans. Should a Praetorian transfer to a different unit, the gems are carefully extracted from the armor and replaced with stones of the new hue. The colored inlay on the left pauldron of the custodian clearly signifies which shield company or war host they belong to. In the case of color mismatch, the shade of the larger formation is used. Typically, the same color applies to the Praetorian's tabard and any other regalia. The armor of all Adeptus Custodes is made from the incredibly rare metal auramite. Naturally possessing a lustrous golden shade, it suits the personal bodyguards of the emperor perfectly. Through strictly secretive alchemical processes, the tint of auramite can be slightly altered or entirely changed. This is a laborious and costly process, but it is believed that simply painting the armor does not befit the high status of the custodians. The shaft or hilt of a Praetorian's weapon is often crafted or frequently modified to match the color with the armor, although not all shield companies adhere to this custom. When a candidate ascends to the ranks of the Adeptus Custodes, they are presented with an exquisitely crafted dagger known as a misericordia. The hilt of such a weapon, adorned with gold and theldrite filigree, is perfectly tailored to the owner's grip, and the blade is imbued with micromolecular resonator spirits, the vibration of which allows the edge to pass through the thickest armor as if it did not exist. Yet the misericord is not merely the most dangerous personal weapon, its significance is far more profound. It is said that such ritual daggers first appeared during the darkest days of Terran history, when brutal military dictators ruled by the power of the sword. Back then, such instruments of tyranny were named misericords. However, it is believed that later, after the initiation of the Emperor's unification wars, his bodyguards adopted the term and infused it with a different meaning. From a symbol of autocracy, the blade transformed into a sign that its bearer had the right to act as the executor of judgments passed by the master of humankind, to take the lives of satraps, demagogues, and madmen who opposed him. Possession of a misericord still marks a warrior as an executioner acting by the emperor's will, but after his battle with Horus, the daggers acquired another, even darker significance. They became weapons of retribution against those who turned against humanity's sovereign, those whose betrayal left only a wounded shell of him. It is said that every time the blade pierces the heart of a traitor, a small portion of vengeance for the Lord of Men is fulfilled. Typically, the custodians are above such superstitions, yet even among their ranks, some believe that by shedding enough traitor blood, the Praetorians will somehow resurrect their master. Proponents of another theory, known as Miserians, believe that wounds inflicted by these daggers will sooner or later doom the powerful heirs of Horus, and the Black Legion, along with its commanders, will die from 1,000 cuts. Therefore, although the Golden Guards are not required to wield misericords, they almost always hang the blades at their sides before a battle with the heretical Astartes. Custodian wardens stand out by wearing ceremonial garb over their armor, befitting their veteran status. Each custodian warden has served the emperor for no less than 5 centuries. These warriors are armed with either the traditional guardian spears of the Golden Legion or Castellan axes with massive blades. Such axes are well suited for precision and relentless strikes, where the extraordinary strength of a Praetorian is multiplied by the weight of the weapon. Delivering a formidable blow, the warrior astonishingly swiftly changes the attack's direction, cleaves through the victim's defense and severs their head or limbs. If the enemy attempts to evade death by keeping a distance, the custodian warden will eliminate them with dense bursts of bolt shells from the handle of the axe. Among comrades, such warriors are reputed as imperturbable and infinitely patient sentinels. Upon donning the attire which signifies their position within the Brotherhood, the wardens bind themselves with a vow, requiring them to fight like indomitable sentinels, standing in the path of foes as an impregnable living fortress of auramite and muscle. The oath of each of these Praetorians is unique, as it is written by the warrior himself. After a year-long reflection spent meditating on the dangerously narrow ledges of the Gallows Tower, loyalty to this oath means more to the warrior than life itself. Thus, his resolve, initially astonishing in its firmness, reaches truly terrifying limits. When it is necessary to break through defenses, board an enemy ship, or eliminate the leader of heretics and his retinue, the Alaris custodians are called to battle. For these golden guardians unleash sudden and fierce attacks aimed directly at the heart of the enemy. These Praetorians are named after the model of their exquisitely crafted Terminator armor, whose cost is measured in planets. Driven by magnetomic generator shrines, articulated with Leonis-class actuators, and fashioned from layered auramite and adamantium, Alaris armor is a marvel of craftsmanship. Each of these masterpieces of the armorer's craft provides the wearer with remarkable freedom of movement, while barely reducing their speed, as well as enhancing strength and endurance. A warrior in such armor remains safe and unharmed, even should a macro cannon shell explode beneath his feet. Considering also the blessed protection granted by the Master of Mankind, it can be said that Alaris is the most reliable model of personal combat armor in the entire Imperium. Indeed, this is precisely what is required for battles involving custodian terminators. The weapons of the Praetorians are no less formidable than their armor. Alarus pierces enemies with guardian spears as long as 2 human heights, or cleaves them with massive Castellan axes that can bisect a Chaos Lord or remove the head of an Orc Psyker with a single stroke. In addition to such an arsenal, the Terminators have ballistus grenade launchers mounted on their left forearms. At a warrior's mental signal, such a grenade launcher pelts the enemy with a hail of illuminated projectiles. The ballistas can also be loaded with concussion grenades, which not only detonate with a blinding flash and unbearable noise, but also emit electro-banishment dipole reflectors. Under such an onslaught, the enemy is temporarily blinded, deafened, and racked with agonizing convulsions, and all their equipment ceases to function. Using such equipment, the Alaris custodians suppress with fire and swiftly deal with their target's bodyguards, leaving the main prey defenseless before the Praetorians' wrath. Terminator warriors, personally selected by the Captain General from among the most martial fighters of the 10,000, will not miss the opportunity to plunge headlong into the most dangerous battles. Every Alarus possesses the perfect instinct of a killer, and his wrath is honed like the edge of a blade. Yet these custodians are not reckless berserkers. The galaxy hosts many masters of close combat, driven solely by rage, but in the case of the Praetorians, every action is controlled by willpower. In each of their strikes, devastating power is guided by surgical precision. The relentlessness and valor of the Alaris custodians are such that when necessary, their squad divides immediately after the initial assault, with warriors delving individually into the enemy's rear. Fighting without support, these custodians annihilate particularly important targets, sow confusion and panic among the enemies caught unawares, and completely destabilize the situation before the arrival of fresh forces of the Golden Legion, who complete the rout. The effectiveness of this tactic is evidenced by the list of heretical strongholds that have fallen as a result of attacks from within. In recent years, one of the Alaris custodian squads has achieved outstanding success, employing tactics of intimidation and acting in the role of executioners. Under the leadership of the unwavering Vannius Arcturontibus, the detachment known as the Gilded Fist has become renowned for its brutal feats in the name of the Emperor of Mankind. These very warriors eradicated the Ulgworm cult of the Pan-Siberic cluster, ended the mad schemes of Inquisitor Dan Loxtos, and led the purge of the traitor-held space hulk Leviathan of Agonies, preventing it from nearing the borders of the Sol system. Unusually for Custodians, the members of this squad have fought together for several decades, believing that they best serve the Emperor as a unified, tightly bonded brotherhood. Few doubt this, as in the ranks of the Gilded Fist, such illustrious heroes stand shoulder to shoulder as Monastus Kem, Paradon Helastes, and Dalathap Euramides. The Adeptus Custodes are a celebrated and deeply revered fighting force. At the dawn of the Imperium, they marched into battle alongside the Emperor, and in the resplendent image of the Golden Guardians, the majesty of the Emperor of mankind seemed to be reflected. However, it is not only the weapons and armor of the Praetorians that are crafted to recall his martial successes. For a long time, the same holds true for the proud vexilla banners, under which some of the most experienced soldiers of the Golden Legion fight. The vexilla is a tall banner crowned with the imperial aquila, the principal symbol of the master of mankind's authority. The use of the two-headed eagle as the main heraldic element is permitted only to the Adeptus Custodes, and such a standard produces a stunningly inspiring effect on all who find themselves nearby. Soaring high above the confusion of battle, the vexilla transforms into a golden beacon of true light, upon sight of which the faithful servants of the Emperor are filled with reverence. Beneath the shadow of the aquila, even the most inconspicuous defender of the Imperium feels in their heart the touch of the Emperor of mankind. The enemies of humanity, on the contrary, shrink back in terror. Their hands and feet grow weak, and their thoughts become muddled as they realize that the Emperor's greatest warriors are already poised to tear them apart. The vexillas are created on Terra as binding oaths by the Master of the Tower Aquilane, and the meticulous work on each standard lasts 100 years. Upon their completion, these beautiful standards are borne amidst processions of craft thralls, ministorum priests and heraldic servitors to the Auric Eyrie, where they are held upon stasis podia until required. Some banners are employed solely for ritualistic purposes, carried during processions and parades through the endless corridors of the imperial palace. However, the majority of the vexillas, equipped with highly useful devices, are intended for battles. The standards that veterans of the Shield clans take to war usually belong to one of several types. Vexillas are not merely banners meant to inspire reverence or fear. They are equipped with special systems that provide invaluable support to the custodians who fight under the Golden Standard. The most common are the so-called Vexilla Imperius, whose very presence fills the Praetorians nearby with unwavering determination and newfound strength. Whether this phenomenon is caused by a purely psychological effect or the influence of some mysterious technology is known only to the inhabitants of the Tower Aquilane. For others, it is enough that it exists and delivers results. The Vexilla Defensor is brought into battles against enemies possessing devastating firepower. This proud banner incorporates a generator of a high-energy deflective field which shields nearby allies with a power dome. The deployment of standards of this type has given rise to many legends and tales. Naive soldiers may believe that the Emperor himself protects those who fight shoulder to shoulder with his chosen warriors. The Vexilla Magnifica incorporates photophantasmic fluctuators and psycho-amplifactor clarions. Anyone daring to attack the standard-bearer with such a standard, or his comrades, will be blinded by the radiance of the ruler of humanity's majesty. The enemy's gun sights will cease to function, their optic nerves will burn out, and their thoughts will scatter into incoherent fragments. These standards cap the spearhead of an attack to prevent the enemy from counterattacking. Besides the technological marvels mentioned above, each Vexilla is equipped with a teleportation beacon, shielded from the Empyrean's influence. Usually, these beacons are used to bring in reinforcements, catching the enemy off guard with their arrival. Sometimes, Contemptor dreadnoughts or land raiders can be teleported onto the battlefield. This is possible because the Custodian starships house enormous ancient powerful teleportariums of the God-strike pattern. Such devices align perfectly with the combat style favoured by the Praetorians. They use teleportation to halt an unforeseen breakthrough, capitalise on a breach in enemy lines, or confuse the enemy by abruptly changing the course of the battle. Additionally, Vexillus constantly transmit a directed beam of encoded identifiers containing operational information for Allied Imperial forces, which helps the troops act cohesively. Golden banners bolster the morale of the Adeptus Custodes' allies, and the Vexillus praetors themselves are true masters of combat, making it so that shield companies almost always march to war under the shadow of these standards. The Virtus Praetors detachment charges into battle, astride the powerful Dawn Eagle jet bikes. These custodian veterans, battle-hardened across hundreds of planets, fully comprehend the importance of speed in combat. They must not only close the distance with the enemy, but strike at the precise time and place. Identifying where their comrades are facing the greatest adversity, the Golden Lightning Praetorians dart to those very locations. These flying units act as scouts for their shield companies. Soaring above the battleground, they transmit information on enemy maneuvers via Vox. The auto senses of the Virtus Praetors armor are optimized for this task. They are equipped with arrays of data augers, optical auspicators, and multispectral motion oracles, allowing the warriors to locate and track even concealed adversaries. When a squadron of jet bikes with keen-eyed pilots circles above, a shield captain can be assured that the foes have almost no chance of catching him unaware. Every Virtus Praetor is an unparalleled combatant, honing his superhuman skills through service in the ranks of the Custodian Guard. An exceptionally accurate marksman, he fells enemies even when racing through labyrinthine ruins or dense forests at blinding speed. These guards prove equally impressive in close combat. Each can slice through the throat of a foe in impenetrable armor in a single pass. Even in the thick of battle, analyzing the situation in fractions of a second, the Praetorians skillfully bypass obstacles, catch fleeing adversaries, and remarkably swiftly assess any shifts in force deployments. In addition to their outstanding abilities, the jet bike pilots possess magnificent equipment. Clad in auramite armor, they wield immense interceptor lances. This formidable spear, greater in length than an ogrin's height, impeccably balanced, ends in an adamantine blade sheathed in a disruptive field. The Virtus Praetors are masters of brief, swift attacks. Charging at full speed, they impale predetermined enemies with their lances, then swiftly withdraw their weapons from the bodies and dart away. These strikes are deadly, each culminating in a fountain of blood. Nevertheless, the primary weapon in the Praetorians' arsenal is their flying mechanical mounts. The magnificent Dawn Eagle jet bikes are relics from the times of the Crusade, forged from auramite and adamantium. They are only slightly smaller than a light fighter in size and can accelerate to nearly the speed of sound, while essentially remaining grav skimmers. Thanks to the phenomenally durable hull of the jet bikes, the rider can ram walls and enemy warriors without the risk of falling. The Dawn Eagle responds with alacrity to the slightest touch of its control handles, effortlessly evading enemy fire. Jet bikes equipped with hurricane bolter arrays can carve bloody swaths through enemy hordes, yet the Virtus Praetors excel when mounted on skimmers with salvo launchers, annihilating enemy armor with lightning strikes. Surging across the battlefield, the Custodians swiftly flank the enemy, encircle their heaviest war machines, and obliterate them with melter missiles launched from point-blank flight. Even aerial targets fall prey to the Praetorians. With concentrated anti-air fire, they weave a lethal net in the sky, deadly to the foe's swift aircraft. The venerable Contemptor. Dreadnoughts, amplifying their battle cry with Vox amplifiers and engulfed by the rage of the Walker, the Adeptus Custodes mercilessly descend upon the foe, ripping through their ranks with powerful volleys from weapons that substitute for one of their limbs on these bipedal semi-machines. Either enemy armor is transformed into molten carcasses under melter energy blasts, or infantry is mowed down by the revolving barrels of a Keris pattern assault cannon. Another hand of the dreadnought ends in a fist the size of a ram's head, a gilded gauntlet capable of ripping a tank turret off or smashing all the bones in an enemy's body with a single blow. Applying both weapons with unparalleled skill typical of Praetorians, the Contemptor sows death and destruction in enemy ranks. It tears the heart out of the army that dared defy the Emperor, driving the survivors into a headlong rout. Each venerable Contemptor dreadnought stands as an ancient war machine relic, filled with technological marvels that the modern Imperium cannot replicate. The carefully maintained hull is comprised of expertly crafted auramite plates. The machine's limbs are articulated by fiber bundles and servo motors that afford it immense strength. Their armaments are impeccably calibrated, with the additional protection of a crackling atomantic shield that deflects laser beams and artillery shells with bright energy flashes. Thanks to its auto-repair protocols, Contemptors remain undaunted, even by grievous damage. Should the walker suffer serious harm in battle, backup systems with auto-illumination and arcane drives spring into action. But undeniably, the key element of this complex of arcane mechanisms is the warrior interred alive within the dreadnought's central sarcophagus. Though Custodians are extraordinarily resilient and durable, even they can sustain mortal wounds. Standing at the brink of death, some Praetorians express the desire to continue fighting for the Emperor and so are placed within the vacant walkers. It is imperative to understand that by doing so, the Custodian performs an act of martyrdom. For existence within the sarcophagus of a dreadnought, even one as advanced as a Contemptor, is at best a semi-conscious state. The pilot has all unnecessary flesh removed, transforming him into a meat sack of organs and brain matter, floating in a reinforcement glass tank filled with amniotic fluid. The warrior is forever linked to the life support systems of a bipedal machine. From that point onward, its mighty limbs become the arms and legs of the Guardian, while its sensor array and vox emitter serve as his eyes, ears and mouth. The fallen Praetorian becomes a war god, effortlessly withstanding barrages of fire and crushing the enemies of the Emperor with hydraulic manipulator blows. The flip side of such grandeur is eternal isolation from the surrounding world, and being connected to mechanical feedback devices incapable of fully transmitting the sensation of sunlight on the skin or the gratifying plunge of one's blade into enemy flesh. However, history records Custodians who, without being wounded, agreed to take the place in the Contemptor following the death in battle of the previous pilot. Such volunteers were Custodians who either intended to leave Terra as the eyes of the Emperor, or believed they had disgraced themselves in some way, or made such a choice simply because they deemed it their duty. Regardless, all of them sacrificed their bodies so that the dreadnoughts of the Golden Legion could continue to fight. Shield Captain Hasturius Calaxor first took on the burden of command during the Great Siege, the final battle of the Horus Heresy. It was he who single-handedly held the Enlightener's stare, repelling attacks from the treacherous soldiers of the 9th Terran Wardens. It was he who gathered lordly heavy infantry units around himself, inspiring the warriors with his courage, and leading them, reclaimed the dome of the architects from Dortha Cole and his heretical Astartes of the 16th Legion. Reuniting with a squad of Custodian guards, Calaxor utterly eradicated this detachment of the Sons of Horus, and at the same time accounted for a warp jackal, a warhound titan fighting on the side of the traitors. In reward for his feats, Hasturius was promoted to Shield Captain right in the midst of battle, and by the end of the siege he had conducted 3 more extraordinarily successful counter-offensives. Subsequently, Calaxor became renowned for his mastery of aggressive tactics and earned numerous names over several centuries. On Terra, Custodians slew the demon Thogrelathrax, preventing it from infecting the throne world with a festering plague. Fighting for the star, Keep Magnificence, Hasturius clashed in a duel with the heretical Bard of Suffering, after which he mounted his gravitic jet bike and, leading a squad of Virtus Praetors, extinguished the invaders on the station. Finally, Calaxor, with a sweep of his blade, eliminated the fugitive assassin, Shay, preventing the dangerous killer from getting within 100 miles of the Golden Throne. When the Shield Captain fell in battle on the death world of Palathrix, unfathomable willpower enabled him to endure until being connected to the sarcophagus of a dreadnought. Since then, the venerable ancient Calaxor has undertaken other responsibilities within the ranks of the 10,000. Encased within a living war machine, he not only fights, but also assists the Adeptus Custodes in matters of strategy. Land Raiders are perhaps the most powerful and tactically versatile battle tanks in the arsenal of the imperial forces of the 41st millennium. Possessing formidable onboard weaponry, and ultra-durable adamantine armor, they can transport an entire squad of heavily equipped warriors onto the battlefield. It is no wonder that land raiders excel equally as an assault vehicle and a transport vehicle. Even a single such colossus can change the outcome of the fiercest battle in favor of the Imperium, and a massive armored wedge can secure victory in a war. The land raiders have one drawback: they are scarce. Only a handful of Forge Worlds have not yet lost the secret knowledge required to manufacture this type of armored vehicle, and crafting even one machine requires massive resources and time. The complex machine spirits of the land raiders are very bellicose, and so lengthy rituals are necessary to harness them. Consequently, the cost of assembling one such tank is comparable to the production of 100 less powerful armored vehicles. Each land raider is revered as a priceless relic, entrusted only to the most elite warriors of the Imperium and deployed only when victory is crucial. The one who permits the destruction of such a war machine commits an almost irrevocable sin, and entire campaigns have been conducted to recover wrecked land raiders left on the battlefield. The Adeptus Custodes possess the most ancient and storied machines, known as the Venerable Land Raiders. The history of many of them began at the very dawn of the Imperium. These adamantine giants participated in monumental armored offensives during the Great Crusade. Liberating humanity from the horrors of the Old Night, they crushed alien invaders under their tracks, and later, when the treachery of the traitorous legions was revealed, they mercilessly gunned down the heretic Astartes. For 10,000 years, these proud armored vehicles have fought for human dominion, and the deeds of each form a legend no less brilliant than those of the greatest champions of the Imperium. Within any venerable land raider resides a machine spirit of Magos level, a noble and ardent entity that can independently aim weapons and open fire if necessary, as well as orchestrate rites of self-repair. Tales abound of how the Custodes' tanks steadfastly continued to fight even after the demise of their crew, exacting bloody vengeance for the death of the Praetorians. The fact that these armored vehicles are the primary ground transport of the 10,000 itself underscores the might of the elite Golden Legion. Amidst the grinding of tracks and the roar of cannons, the venerable land raiders carry the Custodes into the thick of battle, deploy passengers, and support them with their unmatched armored might. In particularly critical situations, the honored colossi can even be teleported directly onto the battlefield, as their hulls are protected by wards against the taint of the immaterium, a frequent side effect of warp transitions. These transitions are carried out using ancient teleportariums of the God Strike pattern. This tactic has brought the Adeptus Custodes numerous victories. Few enemies can withstand when a land raider full of demigod warriors suddenly appears in their ranks. The venerable land raider, known as the Glory to the Throne, is a mighty war machine that first saw battle in the decisive days of the Horus heresy at the walls of the Emperor's palace. Despite the heavy damage sustained during that tragic confrontation, the Glory to the Throne still serves the Adeptus Custodes. Bearing wounds on countless battlefields, the machine returns to service after each repair. Part 4. Curious Events. The Tale of the 10,000. Emerging from the mists of time are the warriors of the Adeptus Custodes. The long journey begun in the darkness of the long night has led them through the flames of the heresy and the shadowy deceit-ridden centuries of ignorance to the cold light of the present. Throughout all these millennia, the Golden Legion has never faltered, nor will it falter in the future. The era of glory and shame, from the 30th to the 32nd millennium, the Great Crusade. Having united all of Terra under his rule, the Emperor, leading victorious armies, begins a campaign across the galaxy. His armies sweep through space like a tidal wave, re-establishing connections between fragmented human planets and driving alien races into the darkness. The Emperor of Mankind personally participates in key battles, and alongside him always fight the magnificent warriors of the Legio Custodes. Clad in gleaming auramite and armed with blades crackling with deadly energy, the 10,000 vanquish those who stand against them and bring the stars under the glorious dominion of mankind. The burning of Prospero. After the triumph of Ulanor, the Emperor returns to Terra, where he undertakes tasks of unimaginable secrecy and importance. The Great Crusade continues, but now under the leadership of War Master Horus, Primarch of the Lunar Wolves. Dark forces intervene, seeking to influence the Emperor's favoured son, who has come to power and sow discord in the newborn Imperium. The first sign of impending catastrophe was the burning of Prospero. As known, Magnus the Red, Primarch of the Thousand Suns, caused tremendous damage to the palace and Terra with forbidden sorcery, but most people will never know what his action truly was. An act of attack or a desperate attempt to warn of Horus's treachery. The true reason no longer matters. What matters is that the Emperor tasked a punitive force led by Constantine Valdor and Leman Russ, the Primarch of the Space Wolves, to take Magnus into custody on his home planet of Prospero and deliver him to the throne world, where the prisoner was to answer for his actions. However, events unfolded rapidly, and instead of an arrest, a full-scale extermination commenced. Fighting alongside the warriors of Fenris, the captain generals of the Custodian Guard overcame the sorcerers of the Crimson King. The Horus Heresy. Amidst the rebellion against the throne, following the War Master who openly pledged allegiance to the dark gods of chaos, half of his brother Primarchs and their Space Marine legions followed. The Imperium was quickly engulfed in the flames of battle, threatening to incinerate everything the Master of Mankind had built. Yet, while his sons and their warriors, the Astartes, fought among the stars, the Emperor seemed to vanish. In reality, he and the Legio Custodes waged their own desperate struggle, a campaign in another dimension which he once dreamed of mastering to put at the service of humanity. Unfortunately, these battles, on which the existence of the human race depended, did not allow the Golden Guardians to properly punish the wayward sons of their master. The 10,000 only began to play a prominent role in the war for the Imperium when the enemy reached the very gates of the palace. An unthinkable cost. At the critical moment of the Siege of Terra, the Emperor himself led a desperate boarding operation on the vengeful Spirit, Horus his battle barge. He faced Lupercal in combat and eventually slew the Primarch, but the cost of success was monstrously high. The Custodians exterminated countless traitorous demons that flooded the ship's decks, but were unable to prevent Horus from inflicting crippling wounds on the father. The mind and soul of humanity's ruler became trapped in a mutilated body. Broken with grief, the Praetorians delivered the remains of their lord to Terra for eternal imprisonment in the Golden Throne. Clad in mourning, the Guardians made a vow of penance and swore to stand vigil over the sarcophagus of their fallen master until the end of time. A legend's end. The Emperor's loyal sons, surviving after the heresy, began a large-scale hunt for the traitor legions across the galaxy. Those events would later be known as the Scouring, entering history as times of brutal retribution and eradication of sins. However, the Adeptus Custodes, whose formations had been reorganized, did not participate in this conflict. They continued their mournful vigil in the throne world, aware of the full depth of their failure. In those same years, the name of Captain General Valdor disappears from the pages of historical records, though sources differ on when and how he left Terra. Constantine vanished along with all his equipment, which never returned to the armory. Choosing Valdor's successor from among the remaining warriors, the Praetorians returned to their vigil. The War of the Beast. The Imperium, not yet fully recovered after the Horus Heresy, is once again besieged by enemies. This time the threat comes from the Orcs, and the Xenos nearly overcome humanity, reaching the gates of Terra itself. Bound by oath and duty, the Custodian almost abstains from engaging in the global conflict, only annihilating squads of Eldari attempting to breach the Emperor's throne room amidst the universal chaos and turmoil. The era of vigilance unstinting from the 33rd to the 39th millennium, the siege of the Eternity Gate, taking advantage of their ties with the Far Traders Guild of the Indonesic Hives. The cult of the hedonic lord seizes most of the spaceport at the Eternity Gate. Despite numerous attempts by the Adeptus Arbites to break through the heretics' barricades, hordes of fanatics repel each assault. Meanwhile, reports trickle in from the spaceport that the rebels are repurposing hundreds of heavy transport ships and atmospheric barges for a massive assault on the imperial palace. Determining that the cult's activities now pose a direct threat to the Emperor of mankind, the shield-bearing force of the Adeptus Custodes launches a swift assault. Land raiders and venerable contemptors sweep away enemy fortifications, while squadrons of Virtus Praetors on sleek jet bikes strike traitors from above, with custodian squads cutting through cultists with ruthless precision, driving their prey before them into the macro hangar at level 142. Once the enemy is trapped in this snare, the Praetorians annihilate all rebels to the last and turn their treacherous plans for an attack on the Golden Throne to dust. Blood will tell. Leotytus dat Hastel successfully plays a blood game, hiding from the hunters for more than 10 years. Evading every guard and sentry, he approaches the Sanctum Imperialis with a sword in hand. To block the custodians' access to the target, special measures are taken, and an elite Drukhari assassin by the nickname Blade of Ptesh, choosing the same route as Dat Hastel, is caught in the trap. The alien attempted to kill the Emperor at the behest of an unknown but highly convincing patron. The Praetorians ruthlessly thwart both the Blade of Ptesh's attempt and his life, but they never manage to make the Xenos reveal the name of the one who sent him to Terra. The Ominous Gift. Halo belt augurs detect the Space Hulk Ominous Gift, steadily advancing from the dark void towards Terra. General Captain Asoth Kumadra, wielding the status of High Lord, dismisses any objections of the Imperial Navy and orders several shield companies to completely cleanse the colossal object of corruption. No one but the Adeptus Custodes can understand how significant it is that the operation is led by the jailer and his squad of shadow wardens clad in black armor. Ultimately, the ominous gift is destroyed, and the rest of the Imperium should know nothing else. The Guardians of Greatness. Lieutenant Nathasian of the 86th Cadian Regiment is sentenced to death for failing to follow orders in a contentious situation. He is saved by a group of relentless custodians from the Aquilan Shields, who appear beside the guardsmen in the audibility of the golden light. Without a word, they cut down the executioners of the commissariat. Having acquired such astonishing bodyguards, the officer freely employs unconventional tactical approaches and soon rises to command an army group, then becomes the war master of an entire crusade. Nathasian completely purges the shuddering stars of Orc tribes, thus halting the War Daxkrag before it could descend upon the Sol system. After the triumph over the Greenskins, the Cadians' bodyguards depart as suddenly as they arrived. The commissariat, which never revokes its decisions on the same day, carries out Nathasian's sentence. The era of baleful premonitions, from the 40th millennium to the 41st, envoys to the Omnicia. During the 8th Black Crusade of Abaddon the Despoiler, the combined forces of the Night Lords and Iron Warriors seize the Andromax system, which is deemed a direct threat to Terra. Initially, Fabricator General Uixo of Mars, a staunch isolationist, rejects the plea for assistance in exterminating the heretic Astartes. However, when emissaries of the Adeptus Custodes arrive at his forged temple, he is flattered by their visit, leading the tech priest to reverse his decision. In just a few months, allied forces of Space Marines from the Minotaur's chapter, battle maniples of the Adeptus Mechanicus, and a formidable host of Praetorians annihilate the traitors within their strongholds. The Mind Thieves. Over 20 years, Shield Captain Tibanus Lensilius pieces together fragmented evidence that ultimately helps him uncover the mercantile scheme of the Thorian Inquisitor's conclave. The radicals plan to abduct psychers, without whom the Emperor's life would slowly wither. Sensing that treachery extends beyond this, Tibanus calmly and patiently continues his meticulous investigation. As a result, the custodian finds indisputable proof of a deal between the Inquisitors and High Lord Seneca. The latter hides the Thorians' crimes in exchange for permission to sell the abducted psychers to wealthy aristocrats at an exorbitant price. Only then does Lencilius allow himself to unleash his accumulated fury. Rallying a squad of custodians, Sisters of Silence, and Imperial assassins, he eradicates the rot of corruption. The cleansing squad spares neither the radicals, nor Seneca, nor his close associates. the years of madness. Across Terra, a time of ominous rumours and strange portents arises, beginning with the disappearance of General Captain Galahoth, notoriously known for his cautious decision-making. Battling the stagnation caused by his rule, the Adeptus Custodes discover an incredible surge in cult activity throughout the Sol system, both heretical and xenophilic. A doomsday sect incites further wars among pilgrim tribes within the palace itself over line positions, forcing the Golden Legion to restore order amidst the bloodiest battles of recent centuries. Reports from dungeon levels indicate rising agitation among secret prisoners. Moreover, the Shadowkeepers find themselves increasingly compelled to destroy support servitors that suddenly exhibit violent behavior. But this is not the worst of it. It is discovered that the subsect of the Doomscryers is afflicted with obsession. However, this only becomes apparent after General Captain Lancedra, who heeded the false prophecies of the fallen oracles, perishes in the battle for the Gilded Pyre. It is at this hour of mounting fears and dangers that Trajan Valoris assumes command of the 10,000. He immediately takes measures intended to restore the Custodians' full control over the defense of Terra. To stand against the storm. During the first 100 years under Valoris's leadership, the Golden Guardians conduct the most combat and reconnaissance operations since the overthrow of Goge Vandire. The Praetorians eradicate dozens of secret cults, cleanse the polar hives, eliminate Xenos of Vermilion-level threat in the void fortresses orbiting Pluto, and carry out 32 preemptive strikes outside the Sol system. Rumors suggest that in some cases the Custodians even use severed strands of the webway to penetrate the required area. As reports of increasingly severe warp storms pour into Terra from every corner of the galaxy, Valoris gathers the High Lords to discuss defensive measures against the impending storm. Their closed session is interrupted by news of unthinkable events on the surface of Luna, of demigods battling in the airless void, leading vast armies, and of a miraculously resurrected Primarch. Upon learning of the return of Robuta Guilliman, the General Captain realizes that everything will henceforth change. An era of relentless assaults begins from the 41st millennium, the Battle of Lion's Gate. Almost immediately after Robut Guilliman arrives on Terra, Empyrean waves expelled by the Great Rift surge through the Sol system. Riding their roiling crest is a horde of demons of Khorne, which tears through the fabric of reality, invading the throne world itself. The Custodians' worst-case scenario comes to life. Yet, with unshakable calm and self-assurance, they execute catastrophe protocols, charging to meet the invaders alongside the Ultramarines and a formidable contingent of the Sisters of Silence. The Praetorians successfully dismantle the Blood God's scheme, which aimed to decapitate the Imperium with a single strike. Victory is secured at the cost of many irreplaceable servants of the Emperor, but it is victory nonetheless. After the battle, Valoris and Guilliman quickly reach an agreement that the role of the Adeptus Custodes must change. They can no longer effectively safeguard the Golden Throne from within the fortress walls of the palace. Bringers of greatness. The returned Primarch announces the commencement of the Indomitus Crusade, a decisive and even desperate campaign in which the combined Imperial forces must push back the rampaging armies of chaos across the galaxy. Additionally, Guilliman plans to deliver reinforcements of Primaris Astartes and the secrets of their creation to chapters distant from Terra and caught in dire straits. On the eve of Robut's departure, he is joined by many emissaries of the Emperor, inspired by the spirit of the Master of Mankind to participate in the expedition. They shall serve as envoys, bearing Guilliman's gift to the warriors of the Adeptus Astartes, and by their mere presence persuade those chapters that the Primarch cannot visit personally of the immense importance of such a gift. The Custodians will also ensure that Space Marines cast aside any possible distrust and conservatism, hindering them from accepting the Emperor's beneficent help in their hour of need. Carnage on Gothalamor Prime. The Gothalamor system is under continuous assault by the heretic Astartes from the Wordbearers Legion. When the Dark Apostles summon creatures from beyond the veil between worlds, fortune in battle swiftly turns against the defenders of the Imperial planets. Preparing for the final battle, the guardsmen of the 84th Mordian Regiment and the Sisters of the Argent Shroud take positions amidst the grim ruins of the Macro-Cathedrum on Gathalamor Prime, raising loud prayers for deliverance to the screaming heavens. Indeed, as hordes of traitors and warp-spawned abominations prepare to storm the place, the Emperor answers the prayers of his followers. In the ranks of the traitors, flashes of teleportation glint, golden and silver lightning scintillate, and onto the battlefield storms a unified contingent of custodians and grey knights. Amidst the roar of bolters and the crackling discharges as blades slash through the bodies of renegades, Trajan Valoris and Grandmaster Voldus lead the charge that divides the enemy host into isolated bands, fighting solely for their own survival. Inspired by the unexpected appearance of living demigods, the Mordians and Sisters of Battle launch an attack to the sounds of ecclesiarchal hymns, drowning even the roar of flamers and screeches of massed laser volleys. The word-bearers, with the support of their demonic allies, mount a ferocious resistance against the Imperials, and the streets around the Macro-Cathedrum become slippery with blood, with ghastly heaps of bodies growing everywhere. Yet eventually, after 3 days and nights of incessant brutal skirmishes, the forces of chaos suffer ultimate defeat in the battle for the statue steps. Once fresh reinforcements arrive at all fronts across the Gathalamor system, the custodians return to Terra. To deal with the unfortunate individuals they rescued in the Macro-Cathedrum, they leave the matter to the Grey Knights. Giants and gods. The shield company of the Legio Custodes, alongside the Knights of House Crust, assaults the battle formations of Necrons in the tomb world of Trinict. Breaking through the hordes of xeno-androids, the Imperial forces decimate the cabal of cryptex at the heart of the enemy army, thereby preventing the awakening of the ancient star god Zul'Chanek at the northern boundary of the Segmentum Solar. The Echo Vault. A formidable detachment of the Black Legion, led by the ambitious Chaos Lord named Hadrexus, descends upon the planet Dakhorth, sweeping the defending regiments aside. The heretic Astartes advanced towards the ruins of an ancient alien structure, the so-called Echo Vault. The traitors scarcely have time to seize the mysterious object when 2 of the 3 Moiraids manifest in the orbit of Dakhorth. A significant contingent of the Adeptus Custodes, blocking the mountain pass leading to the sarcophagus, repels waves of enemy assaults. Simultaneously, several shield companies strike the flanks of the traitors, stretching and splitting their battle formation. A decisive thrust into the heart of the Black Legion's throng is made by a squad of 40 Alaris Terminators. Warriors teleport to the location of Hadrexus, slaying the Chaos Lord and his Chosen, thereby depriving the adversaries of any command structure. Although dozens of Praetorians perish in battle, the heretic Astartes are utterly defeated, with the survivors fleeing into the warp. A permanent garrison of custodian wardens is left to oversee the untouched Echo Vault. The dangers of excellence. Amid the nightmares of the ongoing war with chaos, the following decree is pronounced. Any clerk of the administratum commits heresy by even hinting that the Adeptus Custodes might lose a battle, regardless of its hopelessness. Fearful for their lives and souls, many adepts, even before the first shot in any campaign, mark it as won for the Imperium if even a single golden custodian is known to be in the theatre of operations. Naturally, such practice leads to catastrophe, and the enemies capture more than one system, despite all efforts by the custodians. Vadrian's Quest. For millennia, the Adeptus Mechanicus has endeavoured to maintain the mysterious mechanisms of the Golden Throne. Despite the efforts of the tech priests, the systems continue to fail and none alive know how to repair them. Shield Captain Heraclast Vadrian, recognizing a clear threat to the Emperor's safety, which evidently falls within the competence of the Adeptus Custodes, approaches Trajan Valoris and gains permission to seek solutions. Gathering a squad of his best warriors, Heraclast boards the cruiser Scion of Argo and sets off on a trail leading to the lost forge world of Morvain. On the plains of Pallas. Following the complete defeat of the Victorium Crusade under the command of Lord Commander Ustrin, The armies of heretics break through Imperial barricades across the entire system. The enemy's advance is spearheaded by renegade armoured companies of the 7th Vostok Regiment, led by the treacherous Marshal Grigor. His war machines deliver defeat to any Imperial formation sent against them. Finally, upon the rocky plains of Pallas, the Marshal encounters a worthy adversary. Into the battle charges Shield Captain Adeptus and his squadron of Virtus Praetors on splendid jet bikes. Melter missiles launched from their salvo launchers evaporate the frontline tanks of the Eastern Wedge. The traitors' armoured vehicles unleash fire from all barrels. The crews hope to swat aside the Custodes, seemingly hopelessly outmatched in power, like flies. The Praetors, however, easily dodge shots, withstand the rare hits, and, suffering only slight losses, split into hunting packs. When the Golden Guardians start attacking from a low altitude, swooping over and between the tanks, yet another enemy machine explodes every second, and the gunners panic, losing hope of hitting their agile opponents. The Custodes squadron, like a school of razorfish, tears the renegades to pieces. At the cost of losing less than a third of his warriors, Adeptus decimates an enemy that outnumbered them. The shadow sword of Marshal Grigor himself perishes last. Its colossal main weapon is utterly useless against the nimble and resilient Virtus Praetors, who in mere moments turn the super-heavy tank into a molten island. The Silent Crossing. After Cypher, the enigmatic fallen angel, escapes from a high-security cell in the Imperial Palace, the Custodians, tasked with recapturing him, relentlessly pursue the elusive fugitive. When the searches on Terra end in failure, Shield Captain Dareth and his warriors continue the investigation among the stars. Securing the aid of the Sisters of Silence, the Praetorians, along with a detachment of elite witch hunters, board the frigate Saul's Arrow and set course for a hazardous passage in the Great Rift. The presence of the Silent Sisters seems to calm the madness of the Empyreans sufficiently that the ship of the Golden Guardians successfully makes the perilous transition into the Imperium Nihilus. In this journey beyond the brink of insanity, the frigate's augurs failed to detect a pursuer, a well-shielded space marine cruiser with a hull as black as night and hidden markings. The osseous tower falls. The homunculi of the twisted spiral construct a colossal fortress of bones, hovering in the atmosphere of the gas giant Othana 5, located in the Vordras system. As soon as their raiding skiffs strike at the gas extraction platforms directly supplying the Adeptus Custodes' starkeep prescience, it becomes clear that threats of this kind cannot be ignored. Several shield companies, led by Alara's Terminators of the Gilded Fist, march against the Xenos. Teleporting directly into the nightmarish bone tower, the Custodians slay every monstrosity that assails them before destroying the gravitational membranes. As a result, the hideous structure plummets into the depths of the planet, where it faces destruction under the crushing pressure. The surviving Drukhari board their ships and swiftly vanish, while the Praetorians evacuate in strict combat order. Nevertheless, unease spreads among the Imperials when, at the battle's end, it becomes apparent that several Custodian guards have disappeared without a trace. The Wormslayers. A group of Ordo Xenos agents discovers Djinn-stealer cultists who call themselves the Worms of the Tendril, entrenched in the underground archives of North Africa on Terra. The Death Watch offers to deploy their kill teams against them, but Trajan Valoris declines the request and personally leads a purge at the head of a large shield host of the Golden Legion. The enemy fiercely resists, relying on the fanaticism and colossal numbers of the hybrids, who bring down the Custodians one by one and tear them to pieces. However, each fallen guard takes hundreds and thousands of mutants and hideous cultists down with them. Finally, the Captain General personally beheads the monstrous broodlord ruling the dynasty. Then Valoris orders the creature's hideous lair to be burned, ignoring objections from the Ordo Xenos Inquisitors. Trajan is unwilling for anyone but his brothers to see the horrid fresco on the far wall, depicting a mass of fanged tentacles reaching from the very center of Saul to devour Terra whole. The Zagstomp's doom. After an exhausting 3-year siege, the Orcs of War Zagstomp capture the Citadel of Miseries, which belonged to the Iron Warriors. The hordes of Xenos, having grown and been tempered in the fires of unending battles, seized the tanks and war machines of the slain heretical Astartes and board their ramshackle starships. But the greenskins do not manage to transition into the warp, as custodians of the Solar Watch materialize within the engine rooms and mech bay sections of the capital ships. In the blaze of muzzle flashes, the Praetorians fend off the aliens' counterattacks and plant vortex bombs on each starship. The surviving guards teleport back to their transports and disappear into the Empyrean. The Orcs pursue, only to trigger the planted bombs. Their massive armada, which according to the warnings of the Imperial Doomscryers could have reached the outskirts of the Sol system, vanishes in a ferocious energy storm. Duty unto death. In the darkness of the Imperium Nihilus, a small flotilla encounters a pair of hive ships that have gone astray. The Imperial flagship, Terra Nostra, carries a cargo of Primaris gene seed under the protection of the Custodian Wardens. Realizing that the starships cannot withstand the Tyranids, the shield captain of the guards orders an emergency teleportation of them, along with the cargo, to the nearby death world of Loke 2. Pursued by swarms of Xenos, the Praetorians retreat to the toxic gas-shrouded volcanic highlands and prepare to defend their precious cargo to the last. All new waves of Xenos surge upward through the perilous lava channels, yet the Custodians, steadfast in their oath to endure at all costs, repel each onslaught. A month later, malevolent space marines come to the Guardians' aid, driving the hive ships from orbit with devastatingly powerful fire. Upon descending to the surface, the Astartes find a sole surviving custodian. Horribly wounded, he still safeguards an untouched trove of genetic technology, surrounded by walls of slain Tyranids. Into the depths of the shadow. By direct order of Trajan Valoris, a small mobile detachment of custodians is swiftly dispatched to the ruins of Cadia. The details of their mission are concealed even from their fellow Praetorians, yet the squad is accompanied by several warriors from the ranks of the Shadowkeepers.